Welcome to the I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes podcast. I'm author and speaker Carrie Severson. In each episode, I'll share stories and tips from my experience with caregiving and advocacy through my husband's cancer journey. Hi, welcome back to the I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Severson. Hopefully you can't hear Huckleberry in the back chewing a bone treat. He always chooses to pick up bone treats when I sit down to do this. So you might see him here in a little bit. So this is going to be the end of season 2. And my producer and I have been talking about where this podcast can go and how it's evolving and what it's shaping into. So I'm really excited to talk about, I think, what the future of the podcast is going to be. The first season, it was really important for me to get our story out because the more, I'm a storyteller, and I wrote I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes first as a book, and then just heard very loudly, very distinctly, I should turn this into a podcast because stories connect us. I did not ever think our story was unique. And the more caregivers I spoke to, the more I saw the need for connection, the need to put a spotlight on what it's like to be a caregiver on the receiving end of working with burnt out, apathetic healthcare workers. And after years of doing burnout recovery work as a keynote speaker and as an author, workshops, seminars, keynotes, and for the last year prior to my husband getting cancer, I worked primarily in the healthcare industry. It was the importance of me sharing what I went through as my husband's caregiver, what my husband endured throughout his cancer treatment, and how hard he had to fight, but then also I had to fight to get him admitted and ensure that he continued treatment. It was really a healing process for me to identify the fact that I needed to move away from the healthcare industry and more towards the caregiving industry, finding my own voice, really figuring out how do I become part of this collective gap between the healthcare industry and the caregiving industry, because there are 62 million family caregivers in the United States. And a lot of caregivers had the same experience or are currently having the same experience that I did, where we had to use our voices in a very assertive way, very unexpectedly watched our loved one be mistreated. And there aren't stories like ours in the spotlight. So the first season of I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes is really short version of my book. The second season is wrapping up right now, and I highlighted additional resources, some milestones, brought Gavin on a couple of times, but it really leaves, and the feedback that I'm getting from people is, thank you for putting a light on this. I love the resources. I've gotten a lot of messages from people around the country asking for support in their specific state. Where can caregivers in Michigan and Washington and New Jersey find support? And I've realized that I have a lot of resources. I'm a great connector. I know a lot of people. I've had a number of different reinventions in my career, from being a journalist, an entrepreneur, a nonprofit leader, a keynote speaker. I am a published author. I'm a professional storyteller. I am a recovering burnout and a former caregiver. I really wanted to highlight people that are in this industry full time in the trenches, day in, day out, supporting caregivers. So what I want to do moving forward, I'm going to launch season 3 in the fall. I am already communicating with organizations, National Alliance for Caregiving. I always say Wellbeings. It is wellbeings.org. And a number of other organizations I'm going to bring on the show starting in the fall. Let them highlight their projects, their resources, their stories, call attention to so many others other than our story. And that was really always the idea behind the show. And I'm excited to get started. I have to say that since I think I've been vocalizing where I want to take the show, more and more publicists are pitching me, their clients, their authors. That doesn't feel aligned yet. What feels aligned is the organizations, so that caregivers listening to the show can feel seen and witnessed. And Stories does a phenomenal job at that, highlighting other people, conversations, interviews. So if you work for an organization that works directly or indirectly with caregivers, please reach out. I would love to have you on the show. I'm really interested in advocacy organizations, Boots on the Ground. Cleaning for a Reason is a national organization I'd love to talk to. The Joy Bus here in Phoenix, they just had put a documentary together. Wellbeings is another one I've talked about, and there's so many others, right? So that is where the show is going to go. I'm so grateful that you've come along for another season, and that I hope you've gotten something out of this. It's supported you in some way. And we'll be back in the fall for more. Take care of yourself. Remember to do something really good for yourself or a caregiver that you know of. Maybe just walk over to their house and see if you can do their dishes. I love you. Until next time.